All right, let's just get everyone up here. All right, I will be Oprah Winfrey today. I have no gifts for any of you. I just want you to know there's nothing under your seat. It didn't come from me. But I did want to thank Sapphire for allowing me to come here. I'm here as a moderator, but also can help answer questions as well. But I would love for my esteemed panel here to just introduce themselves, tell us where you work, as well as you already got a great case study reference from the last panel, Looker mentioned, and then a little bit about your background so they understand the context of as you grow from a small to a medium to a larger company, you know, what are your experiences that you're drawing from?
Yeah, so I'm Jen Grant. I'm the CMO at Looker. Prior to that, many things. I was at Google at the beginning of my career, and then I was the first CMO at Box, took them to IPO. I built Elastic's marketing team and brand, and then I moved on to Looker to take them to our recent acquisition by Google Cloud, or signed papers to acquire, which will happen at some point shortly, I hope. And that's me.
Hi, I'm Robin Joy. I lead digital demand and web sales at Docusign. I've been at Docusign for the last 7 years. I started with 150 employees. We're at 3,600 now. We were a few $1 million in revenue, and we're now going to hopefully end the year close to $1 billion. So it's been a great ride. Prior to Docusign, I was at a number of different tech companies, Intuit being the one that I'd been at the longest, also at a startup with Evan for a little while, and some other companies in the Valley.
Great. Nicolas Draca. I'm currently at HackerRank. At HackerRank, I'm leading the marketing team. HackerRank is in the tech hiring space. We help companies hire great engineers and building great product. Before that, spent time at Twilio, working on the growth side and expansion. And before that, spent time at LinkedIn early on, working on both demand gen and building the marketing ops muscle over there.
All right, so this particular esteemed panel is going to talk about what they have seen and give you advice on. We're all here as chief marketing officers, as marketing people, and as you grow and scale your company from here to here, wherever there is, $1 billion, how do we interact as marketing folks with the sales team? And how do we think about the marketing mix, and how does it grow and change as we grow? So with that as a question, I would love to just open it up to any of you that want to answer. You know, as you went from, especially at Docusign maybe, from the small to the big, what were the things as a marketer you thought of that changed drastically in your mix or your approach?
One of the things that's unique at Docusign is that we serve customers all the way from very small individuals who are have their own businesses all the way up to global enterprises. So I started at Docusign really focused actually on our small businesses and did a lot of digital marketing, which is extremely scalable. So to the extent that that's still a very important part of our mix. But obviously, as you go up to serving large enterprises, you start to get to much higher touch programs that are much more personalized to specific enterprises, as we were talking about, sometimes going as far as account-based marketing. But we still look at digital things like paid search as just an incredibly important part of the mix, while also having events at the other end of the sort of high touch spectrum and lots of different types of programs in between. So really a pretty wide variety. But in terms of your answer to your question about sales, is also making sure that as we're developing events and programs specifically for sales, making sure to get their input. They oftentimes have some great customer feedback, so they may or may not have particular marketing expertise, but they do have a lot of input from what they're hearing from prospects and customers, and making sure that that's getting incorporated into how we're thinking about reaching those prospects throughout their journey to become a buyer.
About you, Rob?
Yeah, so similar. So Box and Looker were both SMB to enterprise. So went through went through the whole stage of starting with sort of the inside motion, which is very much programmatic. It's a lot about marketing ops and sales ops and being able to understand the funnel and running programs, and there's a lot of data and tracking. And then somewhere in this stage of your company where you start to get these bigger deals, being able to shift the mindset of both the marketing and the sales team to say, okay, now we're actually going up to the enterprise, and things really do change dramatically. In many cases, it's difficult for, let's say, an SMB rep to become an enterprise rep. That is a big shift in mindset to a deal that can close in a month, then suddenly taking deals that close in 9 months. And that isn't always something your reps will be able to do, which is fine. There's a whole lot of love in being able to be great at the sort of fast volume inside play. And then on the enterprise side, in the marketing mix, you've got if you've built your machine with all your data and your technology and your stack and your funnel understanding, to then shift your focus to field marketing and events and these things that are much more high touch, you have to actually prepare your CEO and your board that suddenly you're not going to be as great with the numbers because it isn't as direct to here's my funnel, here's my conversion rates. It's like, well, we did this great campaign and maybe a year from now we might get some revenue from it. And so there's a shift in both your managing up and then a shift in what your team does and the type of people you hire.
Yeah. And then, we had talked about this as we were kind of briefing beforehand. So imagine that you have this perfect marketing mix that has evolved from, small into big, and you have the high touch events. What other things do you need when you think about now you're working with the sales team, and it's a very critical relationship. Yeah. So, give us some best practices of how we can interact with each other, the marketers on this side and some of the salespeople here. What will help us grow?
Yeah, so there's always that topic of sales and marketing alignment. It sounds fluffy and naive, but it has to work, and it has to work together. I think building the relationship from the start and across the organization at every single level between sales and marketing is really important. It's not only about the exec. Of course, the exec on each team meeting are going to look at each other and we're a best buddy and we're going to work together. But you want to ensure that this is happening at the board level and that they are telling the same story, I would say, but it's happening deep in the team, right? So there is a couple of things here, and the things are, first is when you hire new talent on the marketing team, you need to think about who, one relevant on the sales side, should be part of the hiring process. And so it starts there. The second thing, and depending on the phase of growth you are and how fast you're growing, when you hire marketing talent, you just want to be thoughtful about not only the person you're going to hire for what they're going to do for the next 6 to 9 months, but actually you're not really hiring them for that. You are hiring them for what they're going to do a year from now. I had the chance both at LinkedIn and Twilio to go through those like hyper growth phase, and the way we build our team and we scale our team was ensuring that people who would hire will be able to scale and grow with us and become manager or grow within the organization 1, 2 years, 3 years from now, which I think we did successfully. The other one is, of course, alignment and KPI. There is that concept that salespeople are under a lot of pressure. It's not a concept actually, and carrying numbers. Marketer must carry number, and those numbers must match or have being quickly tied actually to the sales number when relevant. So that's a big thing. A last one, which I do, and we just completed it actually on my team, is every marketer on my end that is customer facing. Actually, every marketer needs to be able to do a product demo. So they go through certification, through pitch certification, and they have to be able to do a pitch and a presentation to a customer. And it's just to better understand. Marketers have a tendency to do this like the first week when they start in a job, and then they're like, okay, we don't need to talk to customer anymore. We got it and we move. But just being sure that they are connected, that they understand what is going on and what are the salespeople going through when pitching, selling, and so on. Last but not least, which is super important, is when doing planning, I'll talk a lot, so I'll stop there, is being completely aligned on a quarterly basis on business goals, full planning for the year, and carries that part of the weight when doing reporting on the pipeline. So today, as an example, at HackerRank, we have a weekly review, and on that weekly ops review on the sales revenue, so we cover SQL pipeline creation. So marketing starts with that and explain where we are on pipeline and what's going on. And then we're going down the funnel and like pipeline and close one. And then we're going to cover expansion and retention. But it is one discussion where every single leader on a team is going to cover that piece of the funnel. And marketing is accountable as well as sales as well as CS. So that alignment, communication, KPI is really, really important.
Yeah, and I would just build on the having shared KPIs is so important. So when I took over demand gen a couple of years ago at Docusign, the demand team was focused on bringing in leads and the number of leads that they brought in, and the sales team just constantly questioned the quality of those leads. So there were, it was really difficult conversations that were happening, and we agreed to instead have a shared goal of sales qualified opportunities. So now as a marketer, although I don't necessarily determine what's a sales qualified opportunity, the salesperson ultimately makes that determination. That's when I can feel successful, is if we achieve the number of sales qualified opportunities that we had committed to. And so there's really good alignment in those KPIs. It still doesn't mean that we don't sometimes see things differently, and so then I think it's just really important to have direct communication, and the role of sales ops is really important as well, because they're oftentimes the ones who are helping bring together the data and making sure you're even pulling data from, looking at a common model and common data sources.
So I'm going to just stop just for a second right now, just to ask folks in the audience if you have any questions, as well as just do a quick survey. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best relationship in my company, it is working fantastically between sales and marketing. How many people in the audience think they have like a 10 relationship between their sales and marketing teams? All right. We'll talk to you. What about at an 8 level? Are we at an 8 anywhere? What about at a 5? And what about at a 3 or below? Right. You know the problem as a marketer, I'm doing this as research and significance. If everyone is mostly 50% and below, we should just do a coin toss on whether or not our relationships matter, because it really does have to be over, chance. So with that in mind, and bearing that in mind, how do we help everyone get from the 50% coin toss to the one person who says, yes, I'm at a 10? 2, well, yes. Mine too. I started 8 days ago at Outreach. My relationship is fantastic. I know that. It is fantastic. We have had no conflict. He agrees completely with all of my marketing qualified leads. It's fantastic. With that in mind, why don't we kind of dig deeper on that as well?
Yeah, I can start, because I think where you guys started with this alignment between marketing ops and sales ops, I think is a critical point. But really, at the end of the day, you've got to agree on the data. You have to be looking at the same data. You have to be pulling it with the same metrics. You can't be having your sales ops come in and say, we hit our targets, and marketing is like, we ran the numbers. I don't think you did. And honestly, having sold BI, that happens all the time. It is unbelievable how bad people use data in a way just to make what they want to happen. And that's where, in the case of Looker, I get along with Lambert, and I think he might be speaking next, so you tell him I raised my hand. Yes, I did. But we also have finance in the room. So we have finance that's thinking from the business perspective and sort of looking at the historical model of like, these are the conversion rates, these are the stage 1, stage 2, et cetera, et cetera. This is how our funnel works.
They're like an arbitrator.
A little bit, yeah. And they come in, and then we push on them, and sales ops push on them, and we get to an end. And just like you said, we've recently, 9 months recent, but focused on what we call a stage 2 op, which is basically an SQL, and said, okay, we're going to focus the whole company on that one metric, so let's make sure it's right, and then we can say, what happens before, what happens after. That's how we run our business, but we run the company on that one metric. And that sort of relationship between marketing ops, sales ops, and finance, I think that is what can create the right conversations, because otherwise you're arguing on whose data is right. Oh, did you pull that? That you weren't looking at that at a long enough time frame. We need a 4-week window. It should be a 9-week window. Like, there's so many ways you can argue data, but if you decide together, then you're going to have a conversation about the truth, and you can say, oh, you know what? In the marketing funnel, we need to work on our conversion rate to MQL to S1 because, it seems like we're tightening it up too much. Sales reps don't have enough to work. And then on the sales side, we haven't been getting enough people into trial, so we're going to do a training session on getting people trial. Great, like high five, let's go do it. But then it's not like my data's right, your data's right. It doesn't really matter at the end. You just have to decide all of it that this is the data we're going to trust and work off of.
How long does that take?
Oh, it takes time. I don't know if it takes a lot of time.
I want to add on that. I don't think there is there is not a good or a bad definition.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
That's
Everybody is coming with their definition, like young, like I'm right. No, it doesn't work this way.
Yeah.
So there is no good, there is no bad. Of course, there are benchmarks. So you're gonna ping your friend. And you're like, hey, what's your definition in your world? It's like, okay, cool. But actually, what you want is sit in a room and agree something. And you come with options. It needs to be an open discussion and agree something. And it's super important to get to that conclusion. The perfect definition does not exist. Like, it does not. And at the end of the day, it will close 20-25%, meaning I've been working in enough businesses where conversion rate are going to be pretty similar depending on company size and time to sell. What you want is to have an agreement within the organization to drive the business and to have alignment across organization. I have we're a company of 250. I have 15 people on the marketing team. 5 people carry SQL number in different level and different thing. In the sales organization, I think in the SDR world, we have like 3 or 4 as well. So it is important even to set those people up for success on top of setting up the growth of the company to be sure that the leader are on the same page on this. There is no good, there is no bad, there is just what they agreed to.
Yeah, what is agreed, yeah.
Do you also have similar sort of metrics that are held, like an SQL number that's held by your marketers, or just the MQL number, so the more leading indicators before you get down to a sales accepted lead? Or
Oh, no. What I mentioned earlier is we are measured on SQOs. So we look at all the different measures throughout the funnel, but sales qualified opportunities is what we've aligned on just to try to drive more alignment with the sales organization. In answer to your earlier question about how long does it take, it never ends. I mean, it is a constant process of alignment and really relooking at where there's opportunities to improve. And really thinking about opportunities as we think about like the overall topic of the presentation, opportunities to scale. Like how can we've looked at this year for us, lead scoring has been a huge lever for us to scale as we've looked at trying to identify leads, better data models to help us identify the leads that are going to be most likely to convert so that people are working the right leads. That's been a huge lever for us this year.
Yeah.
So once you get the agreement on the fact that you're both accepting these leads, sales and marketing, you still then innovate and try to add more data or more insight to say, okay, now we're scoring them. Now I have to teach you what scoring means.
Well, and there's always the time when you don't hit the number, right? When something is soft, and so that's when it's tough, right? The relationship's great when everyone's hitting their numbers, but when there's a segment that is soft is when the challenge comes in, and then it's just really important to be a team and approaching it together, and looking throughout the funnel to see both where the softness is, but also to the extent that you're trying to fill a gap quickly, where are your levers that are going to be most actionable in the short term.